3, 2, 1, start. For those of you that don't know the Pacific Northwest Teen Square Dance Festival, that's funny. Later on, it might be funnier. Hello. Good morning. This is, and welcome to the 36th CALLERLAB convention. Today is Monday, April 6th, and this is the panel Square Dancing as Competitive Sport. I am Stephen Cole, and I am your moderator today. And next to me is Bret Kappenman I'm from Tempe, Arizona. Bret Kappenman next to me is from Renton, Washington, and Ann Skoe is next to him from Canby, Oregon. And we are going to talk about the Pacific Northwest Teen Square Dance Festival. And I have a script that I want to stick to. Really, it's true. So the Pacific Northwest Teen Square Dance Festival is and has been an existing competitive event since 1950. It has been held in the lower mainland area of Canadian British Columbia as well as in the states of Washington and Oregon. Its beginnings are Canadian and started as a part of a movement called Teen Town. And believe me, I've looked for Teen Town and it seems to have disappeared. But apparently it was a movement empowering teens to become better citizens, among other things. And square dancing was part of this. It is the Pacific Northwest Teen Square Dance Festival. Even though it is a festival, it is squares and rounds. And it started out, and it has, as just a simple competition, and it has evolved over the years. It is a festival for teens, and the clubs are for teens. And it does have, while the kids run the clubs, they do have parental oversight, but it is an event that features teens and preteens as square dancers, round dancers, square dance callers, and round dance cuers. The festival weekend itself starts on Friday night with a Let Your Hair Down dance, for those that have hair. It is a format that's pretty flexible, but it's standard practice to let all the teen, the preteen, and club callers have a chance to call to the whole floor. That is, every club that comes is on this big gymnasium floor, square dance hall, and they dance and have a great time, scream and carry on, and just have a good old time. Attendance has ebbed and flowed over the years, just like the square dance population has. What I have found was asking around was that the largest number of squares by a single club was 19. That was the Mavericks taken with Wayne Easton calling. And then Bob Dahlman from Canada took 19 squares, but took them from 2 clubs one year. So at one time, just like square dancing was huge, there have been huge moments in square dance history for the PNTSDF. Let's see. While it is called the Pacific Northwest Teen Square Dance Festival, it has a strong round dance component that is nearly as large. But the interesting thing is that you have to be a square dancer to compete as a round dancer. You can't go and just be a round dancer and compete. You are a square dancer first. Most clubs that participate fall in one of 2 categories. They're either a preteen club or a teen club. There's a small movement of family clubs that are starting to participate as well. However, squares from these clubs usually compete based on the same categories that the teens and preteens do. It's not uncommon for these various teen and family clubs to support one another. There are spaghetti feeds, black light dances, dance marathons, other club events that go on during the year that they support each other to try to maintain their membership and their fellowship. Whether good or bad, most preteen and teen clubs mirror the structure of their adult counterparts. They have a board, they have officers, presidents, committees, and this can be good, this can be bad. Speaking from experience, it can go both ways. Parents have a place in most clubs, but it is usually as a advisory level or a veto level of something that is totally absurd or dangerous. Club callers are teachers and dance leaders, but there's a lot of involvement from parents, club alumni, and past competitors. While a club will attend a festival en masse, each square from that club goes as an established team. Many of the squares have a coach or 2, and they spend time on their own away from the club dance, preparing, working on self-improvement and learning how to better themselves as square dancers. They travel to other clubs. They visit. They hang out together. They learn to bond together because they're competing as a unit, and sometimes they compete against other squares from their own club. The set squares are established on predetermined criteria that include, among other factors, age and ability. In Square Dance Land, we talk about programs containing content: basic, mainstream, plus, advanced, challenged. The PNTSDF also has levels that define ability and include age. Where did I go here? If a dancer wins a championship trophy, which is the top award, then they'll move to the next category. But with that exception, everybody else kind of progresses as they get older and as they develop in their square dance abilities through the different categories. Each square also establishes its own identity by giving itself a name, a set of colors, and sometimes even a mascot. On top of that, every square that competes has its own caller that competes as well. When I say their own caller, I don't mean a grown-up. I mean a kid in the club is their caller. That's somebody that they practice to. This kid is learning to call just like we learn to call. And they get the benefits of having some adult supervision, and sometimes they're just like us when we say, I don't need your help. I'm just saying. The caller is one of their own, and this kid gets evaluated and judged as well, independently of the square. Though, if the caller is good and the square does well, it's kind of a mutual beneficiary type event. Let's see. If clubs don't have enough members to fill out a square of a particular level, it's not uncommon for them to combine with other clubs to find stray dancers. So if we need a boy here, a girl there, a couple here. I think one year, there was one square that had 4 clubs in it, maybe 5. There was 5. It was 2 singles and 3 couples. I'm like, okay. And I think they might have even won. They do really well together. And they compete with themselves and the others on their own clubs. Oh, the levels. Squares compete within the following levels. There's preteen, which is 12 and under. Junior, which is 13 and over with less than 2 years competing at the festival. Intermediate, 13 and over with more than 2 years competing at the festival. Senior, which is 13 and over, that has either made the choice to move on or they've won the intermediate level with a championship trophy, which is as tall as some of these little kids are. The preteen and teen callers are also judged and have their own categories that follow close along with the square categories. They are preteen novice, which are kids 12 and under, and they're the cutest kids that you could possibly imagine. It's like, how do you compete with these kids? They're just so cute. They compete as a preteen novice their first time, and all they have to do is perform one singing call. That's all they do. Once they've done one, they're no longer a novice, and they move to the next category, which is preteen. These callers, and they're 12 and under, compete by performing one singing call, and they do one patter tip. The patter tips are frequently memorized, but they don't have to be. Then there's junior novice, which is if you start as a 13-year-old, your first time up, you get to compete in this category as a caller, and these callers can perform one singing call. Junior is 13 and over. You've competed once already, though you could skip. If you choose to go up as your first time out and you want to compete in junior, you can. You can make that choice. Try not to, because we want to let people ease into it. But the junior category performs one singing call and one patter tip. The intermediate category, these callers perform 2 singing calls and do 1 patter tip. And senior, these callers do 2 singing calls and 1 patter tip of their own design and 1 patter tip that has 2 calls given to them 60 minutes before they're to perform that must be incorporated into the tip. This means that if you memorize a square dance routine, a patter tip, and you know it, and you do it, and you can do it by memory, they're going to walk up to you and say, well, I want to know that you know how to do this. So you have to add scoot back, and you have to add Dixie style. You have to get them in, get them out, get them home. Have to. And they're judged on that. There are several halls that run the day of the festival. The kids start with a grand march at 8 a.m. 8 o'clock. And believe me, and these kids are still wound up from the night before because they've had that big dance. So they might not have slept. And so if you want to herd cats, you might have better luck. I'm just saying. I had more hair before I called for one of the, exactly. Let's see. In the square dance, there are several halls that run all day. There is a hall for the teen callers to do patter, a hall for the round dancers, and a hall for the square dancers. In the square dance hall, each square team has 2 rounds for their own competition. Round 1 has 3 parts, and it's referred to as the display round. The floor is divided into 3 areas and numbered 1, 2, and 3. Each square dances once in each position, and it is a singing call each time. The caller is determined by the square at position number 2, and each square takes a turn at each position and is evaluated each one. So they all kind of progress in. They all have to take their positions 1, 2, and 3. The person at number 2, the caller for that square, does their spiel. When they're done, they play a little bit of roundabout music and everybody switches. It's like a Chinese fire drill. They move over. We have a new position number 2, new song. Do it a third time. So everybody is judged in all 3 spots. Now, in all 3 parts of the display round, the following is evaluated. The judges look at rhythm and grace, enjoyment, ability, posture, and styling. What makes this interesting is that each position in the 3 has its own multiplier for each category, and depending on what position the square is in, 1, 2, or 3, these numbers change. For example, when the dancers are in positions 1 and 3, rhythm and grace has a multiplier of 1 because you're at a disadvantage in being 1 and 3 because you don't know the song up there. However, in position 2, when they're dancing the material they know, that multiplier moves to 3. So if you're dancing in position number 2 and you get a score of 10, then that's multiplied by 3 and you get 30. If you're in a position 1 and 3 and you get you get a score of 10, it's just 10. So in this way, the squares it compensates and tries to provide a curve based on what you know and tries to allow for you and your ability. For example, in position 2, when they look at the ability, that multiplier is 1 because you're expected to know the material. But in positions 1 and 3, that multiplier is a 4. So the idea is if you know the material and you dance really well, you get a really high score. But when you're in the middle, you're at an advantage, so you don't have that big multiplier. And it's a system that's worked its way out through the years to try to make things fair, but not push it too much. With the exception then that's round 1. Round 2 is the mystery round, which is most of our favorites. My favorite, because it is the one that evaluates you technically. With the exception of preteen novice, every square team is required to participate in the mystery round. The mystery itself is a pre-recorded tip by an unknown to the participants caller of material that is hard. A good friend of mine, the late Michael Burke from the Seattle area, explained it once to me as mainstream and plus calling using advanced and challenged positioning and concepts. And I don't say that lightly. That's exactly what it is. I mean, it's not, you hear fractions of things that you think can't be fractionalized. You hear concepts as couples, things. I mean, it can be incredibly hard. It's designed to reveal how much or how little a competitor knows about square dancing. During the mystery, there are 5 timers in every square. When the square breaks down, the timer stops. When the dancers start, the timers start. The square with the best time wins, mostly. There are also scores separate for rhythm, enjoyment, posture, and styling. So it's not enough to be good, but you have to look good while you're doing it. When I started the session, I said 3, 2, 1, start. The mysteries start and stop with 3, 2, 1, start. And then 3, 2, 1, stop. And the MC of the day says, Please hold your applause until you hear 3, 2, 1, stop. The preteens get one shot. Everybody else has two. There's a preliminary mystery and a final mystery. For those that have two mysteries, and there are more than 6 squares, only the top 6 advanced to the finals. It is nearly spellbinding to watch. When the dancers are in the zone, it is mesmerizing. When they struggle, it can be heartbreaking. When it's over and the caller says 3, 2, 1, stop, the cheering is amazing. And even those that didn't do well do get to enjoy the sound, the cheering of the crowds. And that, in a nutshell, is what the Pacific Northwest Teen Square Dance Festival is about. It's how it works. There's a lot more to it. I can't tell you how many different kind of aspects to it, scoring, score sheets. I was talking to one of the chief scorekeepers, and he said there are 900 sheets of scoring data that come into their chief scoring room at any festival that have to be tabulated and tallied. He puts them into a database, spits out winners, championships. There are pictures here of the clubs. If you have not had a chance to see them, please do. Have I missed anything? Is there anything that? Always. There's always something to be left out. So that's the overview that I've promised. I am now going to turn it over to Bret Kappenman from Renton, Washington, and then to Ann Skoe. We're going to run a mystery when we're done. We need some participants. So please, don't all volunteer at once. It's much more fun than you could possibly imagine. I mean that seriously. Even though I said advanced and challenge positions and concepts, it's not that deadly. We promise. There are big names that do these mysteries. I mean, unheard of callers that are kind of unknown. Tony Oxendine did one. I don't think anybody knows him. Nate Bliss, he did one. Nobody's ever heard of him. Vic Cedar did one. Mike Jacobs did one. Yeah, exactly. Dave Lightly, I think, did one. Dave Stevens, I think, did a couple. He might have done 2. So these are not small unknown people that do these. These are pretty impressive things. So now, without further ado, then we're going to do questions at the very end. So after the mystery, we'll run questions, and we're here until you guys leave. So, Bret Kappenman.
Thanks, Stephen. I think you kind of scared me talking about all that stuff. I didn't really think about all that stuff, but I've been doing it for a long time. I started in 85, my first year of competition, and then kind of progressed my way up, and as a dancer in 85, and then I ended up calling for a preteen club, and then I ended up calling for a teen club, and actually I've called for 3 different teen clubs. My experience as a caller for the club is I think that a lot of people look at competitive square dancing and think, oh my gosh, why in the heck would we want to do this? I think one thing you have to remember is that as kids are a lot more forgiving than adults. Stephen talked about the Friday night dance, and the Friday night dance is, let your hair down, have a lot of fun, get in there. All these kids know each other from other clubs. It's a cross-border thing. The Canadian clubs know all the American clubs. The Americans know the Canadians. They go on caravans back and forth. And of all the different clubs that I've called for, I think that you'll see that the kids that join, and to me that's what's so appealing about it, is you see kids from all walks of life. You see kids that are the really smart kids in school. You see the jocks, and I'm not implying that jocks aren't smart. You see the cheerleaders, you see the dance team people, and all of these different kids all coming together in this one great environment where they don't judge each other. They work with each other, they talk to each other, they interact with each other. As we all know, we have a great activity. It's an opportunity for people from all walks of life to get together and to dance and to talk to people and to meet people. And you're not judged. We don't care where you came from. You could live in a house down the street with, a house out behind, or you could live in a mansion someplace up in Beverly Hills. We don't care. It doesn't matter to us. For me, it's an opportunity to mentor kids, and that's probably my main reason for doing it. A lot of these kids, that come to the square dancing, they don't belong to anything else. This is their life. This is what they do. This is their activity that they've chosen. And for me, it's a way to kind of sit down and help kind of give these kids some guidance and kind of, talk to them and interact with them and kind of get them on the, some of these kids come from pretty bad homes, bad families, bad environments, and the competition nature of it, there's probably no other competition that they would ever do. They're not good enough to try out for the football team, or they're not good enough to try out for the dance team at school, or maybe sing in the choir or act on stage. But for square dancing, we just say, hey, come on in, we'll show you how to do it. And, as a result of that, I've been doing this dancing since, competing since 85, started dancing in 78. And, it's just a great thing. And for those of you that may think, well, why would we want competitive square dancing? Stephen was talking about it earlier. We've got, Dancing with the Stars, and So You Think You Can Dance, and all these other, pop type activities and that kids are attracted to. And, I'm gonna probably tick off a few people in the room, but I'm gonna say it anyways. I'm probably the youngest person in this room. I'm 39. But I got hair. It's gray, but I got hair. But I think we need to be reaching out to these younger dancers, to these younger kids, and getting them in. And if it takes a competition to do it, that's what brought me into it, was the competition. I went to the adult dances, and I got bored. Just to be perfectly honest, I got bored at adult dances. And you'll see with these mysteries, like Stephen said, the mystery is my favorite part. My goal is to caller for a club right now. I call for a club in Sumner, Washington, which is about a half hour, 45 minutes south of Seattle. And, my club, I've got 3 squares right now that I'm taking. And by the way, if I go too long, just, bang the gavel on me. I'm taking 3 squares this year. My dad's actually helping coach one of the squares for me. And it's great fun. These kids work hard. We basically move the furniture out of my rec room and out of my dining room, and I put 1 square in one room and 1 square in the other room, and 1 square practices what they call senior level, which is all the way up through plus. And then the other square in the other room practices junior, which is mainstream with advanced and challenge concepts. And it's just a great time. I get 1 square going, and then I get the other square going, and I'm running back and forth between the 2 rooms, and it's just a lot of fun. And as Stephen said, to see the kids and the prep work and everything that they go through to get out there and dance, and to hear the applause at the end, it is just,
it's a stadium full.
It's just,
a gym full of people.
It is. And I'm being the, kind of the leader of the group, to see these kids go across the floor. For those of you that get kind of choked up watching, the home makeover show or something like that, you'd probably get choked up watching this too, because it's a lot of kids and a lot of friendships are made, and it's a great thing. Stephen talked a little bit about the different callers that have done the mysteries. Well, I would also like to just briefly mention all the callers that have come up through the competition. You go up into Canada, you've got Al Berry, you've got Steve Edlin, you've got Ray Brenzy, you've got Chris Knowles, you've got Brian Clark, all names that you've probably heard of or heard about. Down in the United States, we've got, Dave Harry, Eddie Harry, Don Wood, Cappy Kappenman, Bret Kappenman, Mike DeSisto, Stephen Cole, Ann Skoe, all these, but you're in it now, and you look at all these different callers that have been in it, and then, even dancers, we've had generations of square dancers that have come out of this, and, we kind of keep building our own and keep, repopulating the movement, and my goal is to actually, we need to reach out and pull some more people in, because, we can only repopulate so fast. So on that note, I'm going to hand it over to Ann.
Thank you, Brent. You neglected to say you're a second-generation caller. And there's first generation right there. I was not a teen competitor in this. My name is Ann Skoe from Canby, Oregon. Thank you. I started this late in life. I'm 64, and I started calling in 92 and had a teen club in Alaska. And Steve Edlin came up to call for the adult club that we had there. And when he found out I had a teen club, he talked to me about the teen festival. So silly me, I decided, okay, why not? We can participate in this. But when you live in Alaska and you want to go to something that's in either BC or Washington State, we also had to raise money for plane tickets as well. And looking back on that, I find that very amazing. But we did it. and I took one square to our first festival, and we had a great time. And boy, did we get a welcome when we came off the plane. There were banners and welcomes and families standing there. That was when you could be at the gate to meet people. And they took us all into different homes to be billeted, so we didn't have to have a hotel room. But that's a part of the camaraderie of the Teen Festival as well. Even though you're competing with other clubs, they were sort of like a sponsor to us as well. And I've continued with the teen club. I don't call for adults because I find this very satisfying and enjoyable, and it meets my creative needs. And a difference it makes in teaching is I try to explore all the permutations of all the calls rather than just boys going in for scoot back. I teach it from the beginning with mixed. And the thing is, the kids don't know that's harder. So, I try and teach it the hard way right from the get-go. And I also try to eliminate the helper words as soon as I can. I start with them and explain that they're helper words and then try and drop them as soon as I can, because that's what happens on the mysteries. And they also don't know that that's harder. You tell them that's how they're going to learn it, and they go, okay. Kids are great that way. They're very malleable. I have some show and tell here. We have the pictures that I passed around, and if you haven't seen them, you can look at them later. And this is a videotape that's a recruitment tape that's put out by the Canadians. It's called Cool Moves. It's about 8.5 minutes long, and it talks about what the Teen Festival is like with lots of pictures, and it's really sort of aimed toward boys. It starts out with a boy who's kind of bored and watching TV, and it goes from there. It's really interesting. There's also a flyer here that Mr. Weber brought from the USDA, and this is about the youth aspect of competitive dancing, and he has several more. Where are you? There. Okay, he has more of these if you're interested in those. I also brought, I don't want to put pressure on anybody, but these are fundraising items for the Teen Festival. They're $2 each, and they're also your ticket in the door if you are in Kent, Washington on May 1st and 2nd of this year. Yes, and none of the adults that are involved in the festival are paid. They're all volunteers, and the money that we raise for the festival goes to renting the high school and buying the trophies and other various administrative things that have to go on. Yes?
Please tell them that the kids have to sell X number of badges to get in.
That's correct. Each square that has entered the competition must sell a minimum of 100 badges. And there is a trophy for if you go beyond that. I don't know if they figure it on percentage or whatever. If you go beyond that, there is a trophy called... No, it's not sportsmanship, but it has a name. Promotion, yes, promotion. All right. I think I'm done.
So, just to wrap up before we run our little mystery, and then we'll take some questions after that's over. We talked about multi-generation. I actually, when I was calling for the Mavericks, which is one of the oldest clubs, teen clubs in there are 3 other colors. You? No. Me? Yeah, there's a couple of us. We've been around. July 28th, 1950 what? 54. I was just, well, not even born yet. Yeah. Because I'm 40, but I read at a 41-year-old level. 12 squares, according to Mr. Cappy. I have met, when I was working with them 10 years ago, 3rd and 4th generation square dancers. So these kids are kids that are kids of dancers that danced in teen clubs. And in some cases, Mavericks. The kids, there's a feeder club, but I didn't really talk about this. But the Mavericks actually have a preteen club that kind of acts as a feeder club to them called the Buckskin Kids. The Buckskins kind of graduate when they go from preteen to teen. They move from one to the other. And it's just a natural way to feed from one to the other. So, and they've already learned and whatnot. But the parents were bringing their kids because their parents brought them to the square dances. And so before I run the mystery, I wanted to ask one of my multi-generation friends about her experiences and her daughter. Her daughter is now 19. She said when Margaret was 9, she competed in her first preteen square competition. She'd been in a novice square with the club called the Clubhouse Kickers, but only a few kids were around from that. She and a boy named Kurt kind of hung around until a brand new square was put together. And in this year's competition, Margaret will be 18, and I think 7 of the 8 kids that were dancing at that first square are still dancing together. At least 5 of them will be in that same square. She says she's watched kids learn to dance at adult clubs and show up at level dances, but then they disappear. While it's not true that not all kids stick with it as long as these kids do, competition tends to develop and keep these kids dancing longer. They enjoy the challenge and camaraderie, that develops. Exactly. She says, when you're a single teen dancer, you feel alone. With competition, you have companionship and see that other kids are going through the same struggles that you are. And in passing, she says, you may recall that I competed from 1969 to 1978. As a teenager, a lot of my feelings of self-worth came from my dancing abilities. And now that it's been over 40 years since I started dancing, I still love doing it. So that is what the PNTSDF is about. It's about not just winning big, tall trophies. And there's this table there's like 3 tables this long, and they're full of trophies that they start this tall and they come to the front and they're this tall. Kids get little ones. The kids that win the championship ones, they travel. It's just, it's gold and pretty, and you're like, wow. It's the Academy Awards of square dancing for these kids. And when they win, they cheer for each other, and they make the tunnels, and they run through them, and it's just an amazing event. So, without further ado, we'd like to put a square or two together. We need volunteers of 8. We're going to have to move some chairs around, if you don't mind. Make room for 2 if we can. I forgot to bring my timer. I was going to bring a timer with me, so you just have to honor system. And then when we leave, we're going to have to put the chairs back. So if you moved one out, help us put them back, please. I got one up front. What do we need? We have another group that wants to play? We have room for 2. Go ahead and square up in the back. We'll find you somebody. The trophy is Cal Campbell. He goes home with you. Yeah. All right. You're out of luck. I'm sorry. Too many callers. All right. What do we need in the back? Give me a couple fingers, remembering this is a family show. Sold out? All right. It's going to start. All right. Ladies and gentlemen. Hello. I feel like I'm at a club dance. Esther, quiet. They need to be able to hear this. This is going to be hard, so we need you to be quiet until you hear 3, 2, 1, stop. So, you ready? No coaching. Here we go.
British Columbia. This is the 2003 Pacific Northwest Teen Square Dance Festival. This is the Junior Preliminary Mystery. Countdown. 3, 2, 1, start. You're gonna bow to the partner, hey the corner to the head, star through, and a right or left through. You'll pass through and a right or left through. Veer left, all the couples circulate, chain down the line, Dixie style. Centers trade, spin chain through. Centers run, wheel around, Ferris wheel. Center swing through, turn through, left alley man, the corner girl, come back, you get back home. Heads lead to the right, circle up 4, break out and I make your line go 8 to the middle and back, and a right or left through, slide through, pass through, trade by, touch a quarter, scoot back, split circulate, I do a walk and dodge, boys trade, swing through, half tag, swing through, turn through, Alameda left with a corner girl and then you get back home. When you're done, side 2, star through, and a right or left through. You'll pass through do, side do, to an ocean wave. Centers trade, centers run, couples circulate, do a partner trade, cast off 3/4, circulate, wheel and deal, centers turn through, left spin the top, sides run, do a wheel and deal, half tag, all 8 circulate, you go once and a half, turn through, left alley man, the corner girl, come back, promenade, you're gonna get back home around you do, everybody do a half sachet. Now the heads lead to the right, circle up 4, break out and I make your line, center 2, go right or left through, circulate, centers trade, the ends cross fold, do a double pass through, clover leaf, centers turn through, slide through, girls trade, swing through, square through, 3/4, trade by, swing through, girls trade, pass the ocean, swing through, recycle, and a right or left, grand right and a left, go round the ring you do, meet a girl and promenade her home. When you get back home and now, sides lead to the left, girl walk, boy dodge, circulate, centers trade, circulate, girls walk and dodge, girls trade, the boys separate, hook on the end, spin the top, turn through, face in, pass through, bend the line, centers past the ocean, and a right or left, grand right and a left, go round you do, you meet a girl and then promenade her back home. Head to star left, to the corner, pass through, trade by, square through, tag the line, put centers in, cast off 3/4, pass the ocean, left swing through, have the centers cross run. Now the girls zoom, boys scoot back. Alameda left for the corner girl and then you promenade her home around you do. Take a little walk around that ring, well I get back home you know. Have the head swing through and turn through. Separate, go round 1, squeeze in, make a line, whoop to the middle and back, touch a quarter, circulate, heads run, centers swing through, scoot back. Now the boys recycle, trade by, slide through, cast off 3/4, flutter wheel, sweep a quarter, pass to the center, pass through, pass the ocean, side boy trade, spin the top, recycle, and a right or left grand, go around the ring. Well, I'm gonna meet your girl and promenade, take a walk around that ring. When you get back home, side 2, lead to the right, slide through, and a right or left through, Dixie style, circulate, swing through, split circulate, swing through, centers trade, spin chain through, left swing through, split circulate, left alley man, the corner girl to come back, promenade her home. Take a walk around the ring, get back home, and hey, when you're there, the head star through, double pass through, zoom, half sachet, clover leaf. Now the centers swing through, extend, swing through. Now the boys fold and all the girls swing through. Extend and do a walk and dodge. Have the boys trade. Scoot back. Hinge. Chain down the line. Circulate. Ends twice. Now the ends will slide through, the centers step ahead, turn around, countdown. 3, 2, 1, stop.
Cheer, 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 cheer. All right. Go ahead and let's put the seats back where we found them. And I have to tell you, thank your square if you haven't. You now need to know that a couple things. That's the preliminary mystery for the juniors. That's not the senior people that can dance plus. These guys have been dancing mainstream. When he said promenade, if you cut it short, they're going to stop the clock because you're not doing the call. You have to do all the calls, not just the ones you like. So that's how it works. And as soon as we get the chairs, we're going to take questions. Anna's going to handle the microphone, and I can answer. Well, all three of us can answer.
One of those was illegal, though.
I'm sure. As I meant to say, we understand and recognize that we have some glasses, ladies' glasses maybe. We understand that not every caller will agree with everybody's interpretation of the mystery. We accept that and move on. Very European according to the European. All right. Separate and hook on the other. I saw that. I don't know if you were set up correctly though. All right. You probably were because you're good. All right. So now we're going to entertain questions. Raise your hands and we'll get the microphone to you.
I get to turn the letters.
I think behind Scott is number one.
I'm Miriam Baker from Belmont, Massachusetts, and my husband Clark and I have known about this for some time. And my question is, if you wanted to get this going in another part of the country, how would you suggest getting started?
If I were going to do this, and the other two can talk about this too, is you can contact the existing PNTSDF people. Their website is www.pntsdf.org. And their rule book, which is thick, is going to be available soon. We can get copies to you sooner. But remember, it's kind of grown over time, kind of organic. So you may use their setup as a template and then kind of let it develop on your own. Do you have?
No, I guess I would just add, you need to find a bunch of kids that are, enjoy dancing and willing, and, maybe you can contact the PNTSDF group and get a couple of mysteries and then play it for the mysteries. If they like it, then there's kind of your teaser right there, and then just work from there. Go ahead, Ann.
Have you got your pencils ready for that website? I'll say the letters more slowly. P and Northwest is one word. I like to put the W in, but don't. PNTSDF, Pacific Northwest Teen Square Dance Festival .org. But if you just do a search for the acronym, you should come up with the website. No, not.
On the website now, there's also I asked the chief scorekeeper to kind of write up how he processes all of the scores, and there's 2 write-ups online about it, and he'll give you the database he uses. It's a FileMaker Pro database if you're interested. Cal Campbell in the back.
Oh, Cal Campbell. Question. When you're dealing with the callers and making up the mystery squares, how much do you apply CALLERLAB timing recommendations to them making up the squares?
That's actually a really good question. And we've had mysteries that have been like spot on, and we've had mysteries that have had 2, 3, 4 extra beats after each move. It's each individual caller, and my preference is to have it spot on. I mean, this is a dance. We should be promoting dance. It shouldn't be racing. You shouldn't have to speed through it. That mystery was a bit old, and to be honest, we've kind of copied these mysteries of copies of copies of copies. So in some cases, they might have sped up somewhere along the way if they came off a cassette tape or something like that. When I did the mysteries, I did them spot on, right number of beats, expect the execution on the number of beats.
When I taught them, I made sure that I was as technically accurate as possible, because these kids will look at the definitions too and say, that's not the way you did it last week, or that's not what I read. And so they'll catch you. And okay, it's a 32 beat promenade or 16 beat promenade or 12 beat promenade, whatever it is, they'll catch you.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about style. You said, Scott Byers, California, Sacramento as a matter of fact. When you say style, how are they judged on style? When you mean by that are you talking individual style? Are you talking about style of everybody? Do they have to have a unique style, or is it a specific style that they have to do, or do they?
Each club, we recognize, just like in the CALLERLAB definitions, it says we understand that styling is different from region to region. Clubs will apply their own styling. What's important is consistency. So when they learn styling, if they're going to do a frilly weave the ring with a hip bump and a half twist with a flip, and you laugh, but I've seen it. Probably. They have to do it the same, and they be coordinated and together. It doesn't matter really what it is, as long as they have something or it's consistent. If you have 2 people doing a hip bump and somebody doing a twirl and nobody doing whatever, those are where the penalties come from. Not really penalties, because they want to reward the kids. They want to say, you did this well, not you did this bad.
As a related issue, when the square fouls up, if they start blaming and getting angry, or if they smile and laugh and keep going, that's meaningful. That's not style, but it's probably sportsmanship. So they're judged in enjoyment. They're judged on that as well.
And just one more thing to add on the styling. You'll find that, most singing call records, and that's where most of the styling comes, is in the singing calls and displays. Typically they'll have a 16 beat opener or 32 beat before the grand square or whatever, and they add a lot of extra stuff at the front. They may all do a California twirl and cloverleaf out and sashay back together and reverse weave the ring or something to get back home. So that's the kind of styling that they add in, and it's kind of the fun part, because the kids get to be creative rather than me as the caller telling them, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. That's where they get to have their fun.
Yeah, I'm Lynn Webster. I come from Twin Cities area. My question is, the mystery tips that we do you sell CDs of those if we want to pick them up for our club to improve our dancing? No? That might be something you might consider.
If you want your own mystery, if you talk to the PNTSDF people, that there's a board, there's an email address, go to the website, they may release them. I'm not sure of copyright issues, and who owns them.
For some of the clubs, that might be kind of fun to improve their dancing.
Yeah, I would totally agree. But what I've found is that when it comes to mystery time, one of the things that I do as a caller, or did as a caller, was make my own. And I would do and it's kind of hard, because when you are you're recording and you're not recording to a group because you don't want them to know, then what you do is you're recording to some notes, and you hope that your promenades are right, and you hope that things work out. But you can make your own and grow your own, and it tends to have pretty good success.
And then also, what do you think of the competition they're planning for California and Long Beach? Are you involved in that?
We are not involved in that in any way. I can say that I support it, but that's as far as I can go.
Okay.
The other thing I want to mention before we pass the mic over here, I think I saw a hand go up, is that the kids memorize the singing calls as the sheet is from the record producer. So when there's one person that's there with a hand on a button, when they say the wrong thing, light goes on. Light goes on. That's one of the few times they get penalized for doing something incorrectly, not necessarily rewarded for doing something correctly.
That's just in the square dance call section. If they've changed the filler words at the bottom, changed the song around, the ones that are not meaningful to moves, not a problem.
Yeah, not like swing through 2x2. If they drop the 2x2, who cares? But if they say swing through, and they're supposed to say spin the top, and they say boys run, the thing they'll get penalized for that.
Yes, my name is Dennis Young from California. I'm actually the vice chairman of Square Dance for the 58th National. What we're planning on doing is not as intense. This is more of a exhibition type thing that we're going to do. It's going to be a last square standing type event. My question for you was going to be generally what is the duration of the tip that they're using, and I was going to ask about the recordings. Are all the mysteries they're recorded? I assume, and every square dances to the same one.
I'm not sure I understand the second question, but I'll ask to clarify in a second. The first one, it depends on the level of the club that's dancing. Like preteen is 3 minutes, 4 minutes. I forget. It's like it goes up. It starts at 7, 13, on this one says 9 and 12.
So there are guidelines.
There are guidelines to go within because you have to understand, we understand that 12-year-old kids have the attention span of, well, what was that over there? 12-year-olds. And that your senior people, which are your Dancing the Full Plus program, can handle a little bit longer and stay focused. Now, the way that, as I understand it, most of these were put together is that the tapes are recorded in advance. And I think I've actually heard Tony Oxendine's, where you can hear somebody in the background. So he's calling to live people someplace in one of the Carolinas. He sends the tapes to the guy that's handling it all. The guy that handles it all, in this case I think it was Brian Clark, he gets a square together to make sure that it's danceable material. And he checks it. Not only does he do that, the dancers will say, well, you can't do this, you can do that, or this does work, or this doesn't work. Then they use those dancers to handle the timers, so the dancers that are holding the timers know the material and say, oh, they're doing something and that's not right. Click, that's not correct. And so does that answer your question? Okay.
And Mr. Campbell had a...
You brought up another question. Since the dancers are tied to the call that is written for the record, okay, what? The singing call.
The singing call part, okay.
All right. I find that many of the singing calls are poorly timed, anywhere from 54 steps through 80 steps and sometimes even more. Do you have limits that this must be in?
That's a funny thing that you should bring up, because everybody looks for an edge to win. And if somebody finds a record that gives them an edge, maybe something that rhymes with, say, Running Bear,
yes,
that record's been banned. It's been declared mature audiences only, not allowed for kids. There is a chief square dance judge and a chief round dance judge. All cue sheets are to go to their respective judges, and they're evaluated. If the chief judge says no, you have to find another one. And the goal is that the chief judge will be the one that has the good judgment to say this is inappropriate. And he was a chief judge once.
I was a chief judge once. I'll just add one thing to that. Over there, this year and last year, actually, we've actually changed it a bit, and what we're actually allowed now to do is to swap out figures from other quote published singing calls. So, for instance, if you know one that just gets done to death up there, like a song called "We Got Love," I think somebody here at CALLERLAB actually recorded that many years ago. That figure actually gets swapped out. The other thing that we'll do to the figures is if it says 4 boys promenade, where? Inside, outside, wherever, we'll modify the cue sheet to specify exactly so that there's no question where they're supposed to promenade and how they're supposed to promenade.
Okay, is the goal to get more towards timing as recommended by CALLERLAB, or is it more towards just showmanship?
It's a good balance. I mean, I like my dancers to dance good timing. I mean, you heard me say, when I did the mysteries, I wanted it timed well. The display is really the spot where I try and emphasize to the kids, take the number of beats. For instance, grand square. I mean, I know most people in here are probably advanced and challenge dancers, but even with a grand square, it's, you go out and call grand square to mainstream dance and they don't take the right number of beats to do it. It's 1, 2, turn, 1, 2, turn, 1, 2, turn, 1, 2, turn. And then they're looking at the caller like, well, why are you still standing there not calling the next call? Well, you didn't do the right number of beats. So and they'll look silly too because the other squares are doing the right number of steps and they're going to be standing there and the judges, there's judges that are watching and they'll notice that. It's like, well, they didn't take the right number of beats. So that would be one of the styling things.
Yeah, and yes, if you think I'm really hard on timing, you're correct.
And so am I.
Louis Friedlander from Lansing, Michigan. My question is how many of these kids move on to stay in square dancing as adults?
Well, I did. I did. There's many, there's kids that have come up through the clubs and have actually ended up calling for them, that continue round dancing. Even with the competition, we have, I think, the same problem that you see in regular square dancing where the kids get into the college years and they get out of high school and they take a little dip there and then sometimes they'll come back when they're in their 30s. A lot of time, the year that I was chief judge, what I actually did was I went out and recruited the kids that had competed previously and got them to be judges because they knew the competition, they knew it well, and some of them weren't dancing. And my goal, my secret agenda, if you will, was to get them back into dancing again, and it worked. Some of them came back and actually started dancing with other adult clubs. So I think there's that disconnect when they turn 18 and you gotta figure something to get them hooked back in. And my hook was to get them in and have them judge. I think you had one there in the middle there.
I would like to ask how many people really enjoyed watching the mystery and the squares, trying it. And those of you who did it.
Let the record show that over a majority did that.
And Skoe.
I don't know, we're supposed to go till 11:45 or do we go till noon?
We could do another one here if the questions are slowing down. The other thing is we could get a birds of a feather room, couldn't we, if anybody's interested in doing more of this?
But we have some more questions I want to make sure that we catch before we're done. Let's go left to right. Man in red.
Ray Hutchison from California. As you know, we're going to have both a youth and an adult, open competition. Have you thought about or discussed a higher level competition in the Northwest other than youth only?
Funny, you should mention that. It's hard to do. There's a pervasive attitude, I think, still with adults. We don't do that. And so when we start, there's a small group of competitors from years past that want to, and frequently they show up as a super senior square that they come and dance for fun, and it tends to be a fundraiser. The money goes back to the festival. It's kind of just hard to get it gelled because we have to get participants and there's some fear. So yes, it'd be nice. No, we've not had any traction. And we're kind of hoping that something like this, to get awareness, talking about it might just do that. Do you have something to add?
No, I was just going to add.
And then in the back we'll catch up with
Ron Kapnick from New Jersey. 2 things. You said that you have a caller with each set. Does that mean you have 8 dancers and 1 caller with each team?
Correct. 9
so
total.
9 people. The caller does not dance.
At that particular time. But that caller can dance in another square. It might be, say we have a square of 30 people, or sorry, a club of 30 people. Then we can put together callers with each one of those squares, but somebody that's dancing in one could call for the other. There's also, we have some kind of orphan callers that want to call, but don't have a square attached to them. They would make room for those at the very end, and they ask for volunteers to be called too, and there's nobody in that middle display area necessarily as being judged as their display, as their primary display, but they're still allowed to be judged as callers. Is that 2? That was 1.
That was 1. Pacific Northwest, would you allow entrants from outside the Pacific Northwest.
If you're willing to come on up. We've had people, Alaska, Oregon. It got its name because that's kind of where it started. But it doesn't have to be. People are welcome to come anytime. In the back, we're going to get towards the front. Yes, sir. Jim Weber with a microphone that does not on. Straight up now, Tim.
Now it's on.
There we go.
Jim Weber with United Square Dancers of America. We support the competition dancing. If you want to do it, you do it. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. That's a good concept. Like I said, USDA supports that. We have this trifold on information about competition. Has the different the trifold has the different way it's judged in different areas. The websites of several of them are listed, so that's there. And I will say that USDA will have 2 squares in the open competition at California because we do support it. I hope more of you do that.
Okay, I passed him because he's had a couple, and I'm coming back to you, Scott.
Karen Herr from Colorado. Question is, directed mostly at Ann, since Ann started a group in Alaska and then moved to Oregon, how did you get the word out to kids? Because the other group has been going on for 50 plus. But how did you get to the kids, and where did you, obviously you had to have a contact somewhere.
That's a very good question. I was new in town, and I wanted to do this, and what I did was go through 4-H. I went to the Cooperative Extension Office, which is usually through your agricultural university in your state, and signed up to be a 4-H leader. I had to go through a 2-hour training session. They took my driver's license to make sure I wasn't a pedophile, that kind of thing, and then gave me, the papal blessing, and it was okay for me to recruit. And so 4-H gives you an immediate legitimacy when you're trying to start a group. And I depended on my sister-in-law, who was a teacher, and she got me a bunch of her kids that she was tutoring. We started with 5 kids, and we went from there.
And I would
4-H is a good avenue, and Scott, and then.
And while she's coming up here, I would just add to that two of the clubs that have actually competed in the Pacific, 3 that have competed in the Pacific Northwest Teen Square Dance Festival were 4-H clubs, and over time, one of them's actually, they may still be a 4-H club, but there might be one 4-H person in the club, but again, that was a way to open a door.
And then finally, I mentioned there's a couple family clubs. There's a club that I helped start before I left Washington State called the Fern Bluff Squares. They have a bunch of teens, part of their group. The teens that are there are there because of homeschooling. The homeschooling that are there, it's part of their PE, that's the word I wanted.
Physical education.
My aunt was a phys ed teacher, and I wasn't exactly her pride and joy struggle. And so physical education, that's how they got started, but then they kind of kept up with it, and now they're going to compete.
I got 2 questions that are totally unrelated. Oh, Scott Byers, Sacramento, California. I keep forgetting that. The first question is you explained that you have the badges to that they have to sell, each square has to sell 100. Is that the only funding sources that you have? Do you have other funding sources? Because it takes a lot of money to create those big shiny things. And do they have an entry fee? What other?
The badges are the entry fee into the festival.
Okay.
The clubs have their own budgets and financial worries. They have to rent a hall. They have to do everything else. Pay callers, if that's what they called it. Beg pardon? Well, $25 is $25. Callers have to buy records. The kids have to buy records, even though somehow my records end up in their cases.
There is another entry fee. This is your ticket in the front door as an observer or whoever goes in the door. However, each square has an entry fee as well, and it is now $8 per kid per event. So if a kid is entering calling, square dancing and round dancing, that's a fee for each of those things, and that's paid to the festival as well. but it's still not a whole lot.
That's still 2 lattes. That's nothing.
An unrelated, again, Scott Byers, Sacramento, California. Age limits. What's the top? What's the bottom?
Officially, the bottom is 8. Now, we do also have an exception committee where if there's for some reason that, we need to move somebody into a higher category, maybe there's a shortage of dancers in one of the other categories. For the top level, the senior for square dancing, it's 21 this year. And,
that's generous.
And,
it's supposed to be 18.
Well, yeah, and it's been one of those things where we've had to kind of change, and and I'm not going to tell you a fib. There is politics involved, and it's like, we need just one more dancer to have a square, and sometimes that one dancer to make that exception gives another square somebody to compete against. So obviously, we wouldn't want to have 17 dancers sit out just because we had some rule that said that you had to be you were too old, maybe by 3 months or 3 weeks or something like that. So there are exceptions that are made.
And then there's one other piece of the festival I neglected to mention. At the very end, after all of the all this stuff is done. Easy for me to say things. And all the scores have been tallied, or while they're being tallied, because there's 900 score sheets. Each club puts on an exhibition. The exhibition is just that. It's like an after-party skit that gets graded. And it could be like a marching band show inside. It could be clogging. It could be acting. It could be a little bit of everything. That particular event, I believe, has no age limit. The past competitors can participate. It's just for fun. And it's just kind of showing off. So anybody can participate, but the square and round dance stuff, your limits are 21 now, and they do ebb and flow.
Okay, Mary Castleberry from Joplin, Missouri. I just want to know if there's any rules or guidelines or grading on costumes, outfits, any.
There's not. You're not really graded, but when you show up in the same outfit, that's part of the styling and grace and whatnot.
I was kind of wondering about skirts for the girls always. Is that still the rule? Are they square dance?
There's a landmine I'm about to step on.
Yep.
I can hear it click as I go. When you get a program, it says if you're on the dance floor, square dance attire is required. There is a silent majority that kind of opposes this, but there's a vocal minority that enforces this. However, that said, when you see these kids get dressed up, there ain't nobody that's going to say, I don't think I want to see you wearing that. Because these outfits are as ornate as any as you've seen on Dancing with the Stars.
There's a sewing mother in every club.
So the requirements are still, girls wear dresses, boys don't. Is that my outside voice again? Curses.
Ron Shane from Louisville, Kentucky. I was going to suggest the homeschool route. You can Google homeschool in your area, and that's how they pass lesson plans and things around on the internet. So you can Google homeschool in your area and contact people for your homeschoolers.
All right, it's 5 minutes, 7 minutes of noon, so maybe take one or two more questions. We've got one up front, and then my European friend in the back.
Yeah, just a quick question. What is the highest dance level or like mainstream plus that this group dances? Do they have any challenge?
No. It stops at plus.
Okay.
On purpose. That's a conscious choice, and that's the senior category, dances plus. And then hard plus in the back. And then we were going to talk about a birds of a feather. If you're interested, we're going to try to figure out something. Maybe tomorrow. But anyway, question in the back.
Hey, Don Casper, Mannheim, Germany, your European friend. First of all, a comment that was very enjoyable. It reminded me of home. We do a lot of that, not at our club dances necessarily, but at our big weekend festivals. Certainly, maybe not every tip, every hour, but we do a lot of that. So it's, as I said, it's something I was used to. Very, very well done. The competition part has got some questions going in my mind, and one of those is who's doing the scoring?
A lot of the as I said, the year that I was chief judge, I actually pulled from the pool of kids that had turned into adults and had them judge. A lot of the judges, again, they're all volunteers. Many of them are from the advanced and challenged community in the Seattle and Washington State and British Columbia area. So, again, they kind of have to go back because as I realize, advanced and challenged don't necessarily do spin chain through and things like that. So but as Stephen said, they do go through and they dance the mysteries. They know how they work out. They know how they time out. A lot of times what will happen is the timers for the mysteries will be advanced and challenged dancers. The judges for the displays, will be dancers that have, aged out. Maybe they've been out for 3 or 4 years and then they come back and judge. The calling judges are actually callers. I've judged calling. My dad's judged calling before. So it's well callers. The one thing that I would like to see incorporated into the competition that's not there right now, and I'd like to see this incorporated for the callers, and I'm starting to push for this, is more of a critique than just a score. You did this, you did this, you did this. Well, how can I improve? Okay, this is all great. You gave me some scores here, but what did I do wrong? Why did I get a 6 rather than a 9? So I'm hoping that, we can add that in and incorporate that in.
And then, as far as scoring goes, every judge that's recruited by the chief square dance judge or recruited by the festival goes through a kind of little indoctrination, gets a little handbook, and I have it, but I forgot to bring it. I can't believe it's not here. And it is on their website now. And it basically has the rules and says this is what you look for. This is how you evaluate it. It's understood that you're going to have your own personal interpretation of this, but you're that one judge for the whole day. You're that one judge, so your scores reflect that. And so while it may be personal, it's you, and you're going to look at everybody. And you send your score sheet up to the chief basically bean counter, and he puts it into the system. So it's not like Scott has one, I have one, and we're all going to talk about it. I have my own scores. And I do have a copy of what the score sheet looks like, and I'll leave it up here for people to look at, that has where you can put in the different scores and the times and kind of what it looks like. And Scott has a follow-up question, even though we're out of time.
It's a follow-up statement.
A follow-up statement.
Yeah. In the mini green sheet that you've got, there is a new ad hoc committee that we've started, which is a competition in the schools ad hoc committee. I encourage all of you to come out and join us there to talk about it, because what we're trying to do is we're trying to do a competition up and down the entire country. So
where is it and when is it?
It is 4:15. And it is in Salon D. You will not find it on the green sheet. You will only find it in the big thing.
Today?
No, on Tuesday.
Tuesday, tomorrow. That's 4:15 tomorrow.
Yes.
So
4:15 tomorrow.
I would like to thank you all for coming. We will talk about. You can clap if you want to. Celebrate.